Republicans want you to lose your job. They want you to not be able to think what you want to think, to believe what you want to believe, and to feel how you want to feel, and they are making that known. It's so ironic that conservatives, in particular members of the MAGA movement, spent so many years complaining about liberal snowflakes and their blue hair, and now they're doing it better. And what is it that they're doing better? Cancel culture. They spent so many years complaining about cancel culture only to find themselves being the perpetrators of it in the end. The irony cannot be any better. So let's take a look at what Vice President J.D. Vance thinks that you should do if you disagree with this administration.
So when you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out. And hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility. And there was no civility in the celebration of political assassination. Get involved, get involved, get involved. It's the best way to honor Charlie's legacy.
This is the starting point for a descent into fascism unlike anything that we've ever known. If you are going to lose your job for having your ideas, then what is the conclusion of this? You know what the conclusion is? It's what they spent years warning us about. They kept saying, oh, well, right now they're canceling for you for what you believe, and you might not be able to have your Netflix special on, and they're threatening comedy, and this is so bad, and it's going to start with this, and it's going to end with us being arrested and thrown in jail. And they used the Me Too movement to frame it as though cancel culture was resulting in people going to prison. People like Bill Cosby, people like Harvey Weinstein. And again, the irony in those situations is that today, those are free men. But the reality of what is happening right now and what the vice president is asking you to do, which is snitch on your fellow Americans for disagreeing with the administration, it's 1984. It's what George Orwell warned you about. It's all of the exact same cries that they had in 2016 coming to life. But instead of Democrats and liberals doing it, it's Republicans doing it. So let's see what else the vice president has to say.
Start a chapter of TPUSA or get involved in the one that already exists. If you're older, volunteer for your local party, write an op-ed in your local paper, run for office. I can't promise you this is going to be easy. Can't promise you that all of us will avoid Charlie's fate. Can't promise you that I will avoid Charlie's fate. But the best way to honor him is to shine the light of truth like a torch in the very darkest places. Go do it. We owe it to our friend to ensure that his killer is not just prosecuted but punished. And the worst punishment is not the death penalty, but the knowledge that Charlie's mission continues after he's gone.
Get involved, get involved, get involved. J.D. Vance has the charisma of a paper bag. I mean, apart from anything that he's saying, I think that it is absolutely hilarious that conservatives and Republicans are trying to say that this is the great next leader of the MAGA movement when he is trying to mobilize people in the most monotone way possible. I don't like Donald Trump, but the one thing that I'll give him is the guy's charismatic. You know, he can rile people up. He'll get your attention. Again, J.D. Vance sounds like a ChatGPT bot was prompted to try to get people to do political violence. I mean, this is ridiculous. You're saying that people should be willing to martyr themselves to spread your ideology. That is insane. Not only that, there's reports earlier today that the military is actively considering using Charlie Kirk and his name and Turning Point USA chapters to get people to join the military. This is the first step in a thread where we are going to have our neighbors calling on us and turning us in for dissent. This is the next step in the fascist regime that Donald Trump is implementing. J.D. Vance is a hypocrite because just a couple months ago, I would have sounded like him. It would have been me that was saying, oh, well, the Democrats they're doing this woke DEI cancel culture, and you should be afraid because they don't want you to believe what you want to believe. And I'm sure that we could find a clip of J.D. Vance saying exactly that. And so we did. Here it is.
Our own government encouraged
private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth. So I come here today not just with an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
I mean, come on. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town. Again, the lack of charisma here is honestly, I think, what is getting under my skin a little bit more. I expected, if we were going to do a descent into authoritarianism and a descent into fascism, that the people in charge would have a little bit more goddamn charisma and be actually able to maintain the attention of the people that they're talking to. But that's neither here nor there. Let's pay attention to what he has to say at the very beginning of that clip, right? The fact that he's complaining about the government pressuring private companies to censor individuals because they do not agree, they being the government, does not agree with what said individual is saying. So let me say something that the current government does not agree with, and let's see what happens. Charlie Kirk was a bad person. He was a bad actor. He spread hate. He said things that caused people to be harmed. He celebrated the deportation of individuals, the separation of fathers from their wives and children. Charlie Kirk was not a good person. And as it says in the Bible, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Now, I don't think what happened to Kirk should have happened to Kirk. But Jesus Christ himself recognized that if you are to defend his name by causing harm to others, then harm will be done to you. And unfortunately, Charlie Kirk evidently skipped across that part of the Bible that he claimed to love so much and had to learn that lesson himself. And that is something that should not happen in the United States of America. But frankly, what I just said is a lot more offensive. It's a lot more on that line of things that you should get canceled for, of things that you should face repercussions for, than what we're about to show you. And this clip is what ultimately resulted in someone losing their job, their livelihood. Let's roll it.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
So if you're waiting for the part of the clip that resulted in Jimmy Kimmel getting fired, we already watched it. I know. That was my reaction as well. What caused him to lose his job? What that he said here was so egregious that his program that has been on air since I was a kid is no longer going to exist. Conservatives are pointing to the fact that he said that, well, Tyler Robinson was a member of the far right, that he was a part of MAGA. And again, even if that is what Jimmy Kimmel said, then why is he losing his job for it? It doesn't make much sense. They're claiming that it's a lie and that you shouldn't be allowed to lie on TV. Well, then the president should be banned from ever making any appearance on any public news station, point blank, period. But look, what Jimmy Kimmel was actually trying to say there is true. MAGA spent the entire past week and the entire weekend after Charlie Kirk's assassination trying to find any way to blame it on the left to make it seem like it wasn't a conservative. They've done this after every atrocity. They've tried to find a way to turn a terrible event into an opportunity to score political points. Okay, they first try to say, well, he was maybe he was a person of color, he was a transgender, he was a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, which again, none of that turned out to be true. I mean, even the governor of Utah himself said, I'm really sad that it was one of us and that it wasn't an illegal immigrant or a black person because they would have been so much easier to blame. Again, where is what Jimmy Kimmel said offensive? Where is it even untrue? They did spend the weekend trying to do that. I don't think that you should lose your job over saying almost anything. Obviously, there's particular circumstances where if what you're saying is like making you not good at your job, then you should lose your job. But there's so much irony. If you're doing a good job, you're getting good reviews, you're performing well, isn't this the party that said that they were about merit? The Republicans were all like, oh, we don't like DEI because we think that people should, work for the positions that they have and earn them and whatnot. Now they're canceling people for saying things that they don't like. I think the only situation in which potentially you should face repercussions for what you choose to say is in a situation in which you're calling for violence to be done to other people. So let's look at a situation in which that happened, and you tell me whether you think this person was fired or not.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why?
Like, how mentally insane do you have to be to say, just kill them? You're talking about another human being. You're the pro-life party, aren't you? And if you guessed that this individual wasn't fired, ding, 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 congratulations. You're right. Of course they weren't fired, because the difference between this individual is that in the bottom left of their program, it says Fox News, and on the bottom left of Jimmy Kimmel's programming, it says ABC. And Fox News is a network that constantly has the president's entire slong in their mouth, whereas ABC is a program, and particularly Jimmy Kimmel Live, is a program that criticizes the president a lot. So I wonder what actually got Jimmy Kimmel fired. Maybe it's that he's a dissenting voice against the authoritarian regime, as opposed to anything that he had to say about Charlie Kirk. And maybe they're just using, I don't know, what happened to Charlie Kirk to build off of the momentum and attempt to justify their fast descent into authoritarianism and fascism. And I'm going to take it a step further here. I'm going to say that it's totalitarianism. This administration and Donald Trump and his ideology and the MAGA movement, what they ultimately want to do is they want to rule the world. They want to have power over their people in the United States first, but they're not just making offhanded remarks about taking over Venezuela or controlling Greenland for the willy-nilly of it, right? They are saying these things because control and power doesn't stop when you have control and power of your state. It stops when you have control and power of everyone. That's why we should be concerned about what Vladimir Putin is doing in Ukraine. That's why Hitler didn't stop with taking over Poland. It is a descent. It is a domino that causes a lot worse things to come. And this is, for what we've seen, this is the most egregious instance of the administration kind of going mask off. And don't just take my word for it, right? A lot of people think, well, you know what? Obviously, you're on the left. Obviously, you're going to disagree with this. I'm not the only one. If you have any level of critical thinking, you are able to recognize this. If you have studied history, you are able to recognize this. And so this next individual who we're going to feature in the clip, he is someone that I clearly disagree with. He's someone that I have vehemently opposed. His ideology is something that I am strongly against. But I cannot take away from the fact that they're pretty smart. And they have been pretty smart. And I think that ultimately they're rooted in the ideology that they are because they are self-interested more so than they actually think that what they are promoting is good for the rest of the world. Let's take a look.
You hope that. You hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be. Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul. A human being with a soul, a free man, has a right to say what he believes, not to hurt other people, but to express his views.
Something that I, never thought that I would say in my life, but Tucker Carlson is right. Look, let's also acknowledge that Tucker Carlson has been a force for bad. He has been someone that contributed to this dissent that we are currently experiencing. I mean, he spent years being the president's puppet on Fox News and empowered him. The only reason Donald Trump was able to come down that escalator and say what he said about Mexicans, that they're drug dealers, that they're rapists, that they're coming for your jobs, that they're trying to replace the white population, is because Tucker Carlson spent the following years after that convincing his viewers of the most popular program in America at that time, the most watched news broadcast at that time, that what the president was saying was true. He empowered Trump. He empowered MAGA. And it's seemingly the case that Tucker Carlson has begun to regret a little bit of his decision because he is, again, a smart man and recognizes that it doesn't just stop with Democrats. Earlier, Donald Trump designated Antifa as a terrorist organization, and I've explained on this channel before that the reason that he's doing that is because Antifa is a catch-all term that he can now apply to anyone that he doesn't agree with. And for now, that person that he doesn't agree with is Jimmy Kimmel. But that's not where it's going to stop. It's not going to stop with just people that he doesn't agree with ideologically. It's going to extend to people that he sees as getting in his way in any shape or form. Because Tucker Carlson might have the same ideological ambition as Donald Trump. He might want to accomplish the same things, and I truly do believe that. But Tucker Carlson's approach to how to accomplish those things is a lot more calculated, and I think for those purposes, evil, than the way that Donald Trump wants to accomplish those things, which is honestly in an idiotic way that allows us to criticize him. And obviously he's recognizing that now, and that's why he's taking the steps that he is. But the reason that Tucker Carlson is ringing the alarm right now is because he knows that Donald Trump one day is going to look at him and say, you are Antifa. You're part of the left because you don't kiss my ring at every single chance that you get to. You don't bow the knee. You don't bend over when I tell you to bend over. You don't bark when I say bark. So you're an enemy. And you know what? It's not going to happen a year from now, like Tucker just said. It's happening earlier this week. For those of you that don't know, Ilhan Omar was facing a censure. They tried to censure her in the House of Representatives, and this censure failed. It was a 214 to 213 vote, with 4 Republicans voting yes, which meant that they voted against the censure. And what did this prompt? Well, this prompted Nancy Mace, a fellow Republican, to make this tweet exposing who those 4 Republicans were. And she doesn't have to say too much. She's not saying to do anything. But let's read this tweet, and I'll walk you through what she's trying to get people to do. Tweet reads, here are the 4 Republicans who voted with the far left tonight and voted with Ilhan Omar. Okay, far left Ilhan Omar. Using the term far left is exactly what I'm telling you Trump is using with the term Antifa. She is trying to get individuals to call these representatives to call their offices, to threaten them, to yell at them, to scare them, to put pressure on them so that they capitulate. That's exactly what happened with ABC. That's exactly what happened with CBS. The goal of a fascist totalitarian regime is not to get everyone to love them. It's to get everyone to fear them. It's to get everyone to be afraid of the consequences of saying no. It's to get everyone to capitulate. And the only way they can achieve that is by putting pressure. And that's what they're going to do. So expect that Flood, Hurd, McClintock, and Millis, the next time around, they're not going to side with Democrats. They're not going to side with anyone that isn't who Donald Trump wants them to side with. Because Donald Trump wants yes men. He wants yes people. He wants yes women like Nancy Mace to do his bidding, to apply the pressure, to essentially mute any dissent, to get you to only exist as he wants you to exist, to only believe what he wants you to believe. This is the ultimate aim of this administration. And if you are not afraid, I'm telling you now that you should be. This is possibly the last opportunity that we have to actively, publicly voice our dissent. Because earlier today on Air Force One, Trump said that anyone that criticizes him is going to face repercussions. So if you're someone that even slightly disagrees with the President of the United States, you should be worried. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to stay up to date with stories like this one. And thank you so much for watching this episode.